I never thought I'd be standing on the rim of a Hawaiian valley at midnight, surrounded by silence so thick it pressed against my ears, filling every crevice of my mind with anticipation. But there I was, boots sinking slightly into the wet grass, sweat gathering at the nape of my neck, and a lantern swinging uselessly in my hand. I had come for research, an article, a video series, something that justified my obsession with American folklore. But the valley had a personality of its own. The cliffs rose sharply on their side, jagged black rocks softened only by the phosphorescent glow of moss and the occasional dripping of water from unseen crevices. The moon was a silver in the sky, offering just enough light to outline the path, but not enough to ease my mind. The locals had warned me, every historian I contacted, every tour guide who knew the old stories had said the same thing. Never be outside after dark along the old pathways. Never look down when you hear the drums. Never. And yet, here I was. I first heard them in the distance, faint echoes of footsteps, not scattered, not random, measured, ritualistic. The air vibrated with a rhythm like a heartbeat sinking with the earth itself. I froze, straining to see in the shadows, but there was nothing alive but human measure. Then came the torches, small fires that appeared along the ridges like stars fallen to earth, moving steadily along the valley floor. They were arranged in rows, impossible numbers, perfectly straight, advancing with a precision that mocked human capability. I felt the weight of their presence before I saw their shapes. Something deep inside my chest loosened, an instinctual recognition of watchers older than any map, older than colonization, older than the roads that now cut through this land. I held my lantern lower, careful not to draw attention, but the flames of the torches seemed to notice. They didn't flicker like ordinary fire. They danced in place, casting shadows that moved independently, shaping the outlines of figures I could only describe as soldiers of another era. Armor, maybe, maybe not. They carried spears, long and dark, but the material shifted as my mind tried to comprehend it. It was the silhouette of war and ceremony combined. Then I noticed the sound. No footsteps, no drums exactly. A chant, low, guttural, Hawaiian words rolling over each other like waves, but spoken with a cadence that no mortal should be able to maintain for hours on end. Each voice distinct, yet blended into one inexorable force. I realized slowly that I was standing on the path of the night marchers. I had read the stories, the warnings passed down from ancestors, hushed in modern times as superstitions or tourist tales. The night marchers were the restless spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors, cursed to roam the land on the paths they once patrolled. They were the protesters and the protectors of sacred sites, the executors of vengeance, the embodiment of discipline and tradition, and I was trespassing. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but the valley had already claimed my attention. My limbs refused the simplest commands. My eyes traced every figure as they moved in perfect unison, the torches casting long, elongated shadows that stretched like claws across the grass. And then I noticed the eyes, not human eyes, not pupils, not irises. They glowed faintly beneath the helmets, or perhaps beneath the shadows of time itself. They were aware, calculating, waiting for recognition. The elders hadn't lied. The night marchers see those who disrespect their path. I crouched lower, letting the mist rising from the valley floor wrap around me. My fingers touched the cold earth, grounding me, keeping me from screaming. I counted. No, I didn't. I couldn't. There were too many. Yet somehow, I knew they marched for hours, decades, centuries, unaffected by hunger or fatigue. carrying the weight of history in the rhythm of their advance. I felt the pull of the chants, almost like a tidal wave, urging me forward, but forward would mean stepping into them, stepping into consequences I could not yet name. And then I understood something worse. The night marchers do not always recognize intention, they recognize presence. Just being here, just being alive was enough to make them notice me. The wind shifted. A torch came unnaturally close and I saw the shape clearly for the first time. A warrior, arm raised as if mid-command, helmet adorned with feathers or maybe shadows, eyes glowing faintly orange. I couldn't hear his voice. I didn't need to. The air around him vibrated with authority and I understood. He could see me. He knew me. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry, my lungs aching with silent panic. My grandmother's words from years ago echoed in my mind, though she'd never spoken of Hawaii. When spirits march, respect the path, step aside, do not look, do not laugh, do not flee. I froze, I waited. The night marchers did not pause. Their formation held, perfect, unwavering, as if the valley itself had molded them. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't a story of fear. It was a story of obedience, of learning the rules of spaces older than any law, older than any human morality. I barely breathed as the figures passed, their torches leaving trails of heat in the mist. I counted the seconds between their chants, each beat with the pulse of history that I could feel in my chest. When the last figure passed, leaving the valley silent at once more, the chill didn't leave my bones. I was alive, yes, but not unmarked. The marchers had seen me, and even in leaving, they left a piece of themselves behind, a reminder that this land is never empty. I stood there until dawn, watching the first sunlight catch on the dew, knowing that no photograph, no recording could ever capture the weight of what I had witnessed. Because some legends do not belong to lenses. Some legends belong to memory, to survival, to recognition, to respect. And that night, I learned what it truly means to see the night marchers. The valley was quiet after they passed, but silence had a weight. I could feel it pressing into my chest, like the mist itself was a reminder that I hadn't left untouched. My lantern flickered, though there was no wind. The glow danced across the damp grass, highlighting shapes that weren't there, or maybe that I hadn't wanted to notice before. I tried to convince myself I had imagined the marchers. It had been a combination of shadow, tired eyes, and the stories I'd obsessed over for weeks. But instinct, that deep, animal intuition, told me differently. The earth still hummed faintly beneath my feet, carrying the vibration of steps that had long ceased, and in that hum, I could feel the discipline of the warriors, a rhythm older than stone. I remembered something else the locals had warned. The marchers do not forgive. They do not forget. Those who step into their path, knowingly or not, carry a mark, a lingering impression that follows them beyond the valley, beyond sleep, beyond thought. I took a tentative step forward, careful not to disturb the earth more than necessary. Every blade of grass I pressed into felt exaggerated, like it would disappear to the unseen observers. The mist coiled and twisted around my legs, and I felt as though I was walking in the trail of their formation, stepping into the shadow of an ancient march that would never end. I reached the edge of a small clearing where the torches had seemed closest. There were traces, marks in the soil that could have been from human feet, but aligned too perfectly, too intentionally. The impressions were deep, and I could see faint indentations where someone or something had turned sharply. Every footprint was accompanied by a subtle depression in the earth, as if the ground itself had been impressed with authority. Then came the sound again, not the chanting this time, not footsteps. A low vibration, almost imperceptible at first, that seemed to emanate from the valley walls themselves. I pressed my hand against the rock of the cliff beside me. It thrummed, resonated, each pulse a heartbeat, each beat a reminder that I was not alone. I swallowed hard, trying to control the panic rising in my chest. I wanted to turn and leave, but curiosity, that stubborn, reckless curiosity, kept my legs moving. The valley narrowed and the mist thickened, curling around my torso like slow fingers, and then I saw them again. Or perhaps I saw one. A single torch appeared in the distance, not moving with the perfect cadence of a full formation. It bobbed slightly, swaying with the rhythm of something unseen. The figure holding it was not fully visible, just a silhouette, but I could feel its awareness before I even registered the shape. The marchers did not carry just fire, they carried presence, and this one was aware of me. I froze. The torchbearer stopped. For a moment, it seemed suspended in time. Then, slowly, the head lifted. A helmet, adorned with feathers and what appeared to be ceremonial etchings, reflected the faint moonlight. And there, beneath the shadow, I saw the eyes, not human, not entirely. They glowed faintly, amber, ancient. A voice whispered in my mind, though no lips moved, "You see, you are marked." The mist thickened around me. My lantern flickered violently, threatening to extinguish. My heart pounded so hard it seemed to echo against the valley walls. I remembered my grandmother's old warnings, not hers about Hawaii, but her words about respect and listening to those older than humans. I whispered a prayer under my breath, though I wasn't sure to whom. I wasn't sure that what words could matter here. The figure with the torch began moving slowly along a path parallel to mine, as if guiding me, not letting me flee, not letting me proceed, just letting me walk under observation. I felt the presence of the rest of them then. Faint outlines appeared through the mist, hundreds, maybe thousands, moving with perfect alignment, keeping their distance but making their dominance known. I realized then that the night marchers were not just spirits. They were custodians of law and memory, bound to the land and the history what humans so often ignored. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had become meaningless. The mist, the hum, the faint drumbeat of their steps all merged into a rhythm that resonated deep with me. I could feel my own heartbeat aligning with theirs, involuntarily, like I had stepped into a current far stronger than my own will. Then a faint sound, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable, a laughter of children, carried faintly on the wind. It wasn't mocking, it wasn't playful, it was remembering, and in that sound, I realized something chilling. The night marchers carried the lives they had protected, the homes they had guarded, the families that had depended on them. They were the living memory of the land, enforcing a balance that had been ignored for centuries. I wanted to look away, I wanted to run, but I couldn't. My body, my mind, my soul had become part of this observation. I was a witness, and witnesses cannot escape consequences. By the time the torchbearer vanished into the mist, leaving only the echo of footsteps and chants, I understood that the valley had judged me, not punished, not rewarded, simply noted, and I knew with an almost terrifying clarity that the night marchers do not only move along valleys at night, they move through memory, through warning, through every step humans take when they think the land is empty. I left before dawn, not out of fear, not entirely, but because I had learned something essential. In the presence of the night marchers, observation is survival and silence is respect. Dawn had not yet broken when I finally stumbled back to the edge of the valley floor. The mist was thinning, revealing the landscape in muted grays and greens, but the shadows felt alive, stretched longer than they should have, cleaning and clinging to the trees like anxious hands. Every rustle of leaves, every drip from the cliffs was magnified in my ears, and I realized I hadn't fully exhaled since the marchers had passed. I stayed crouched near a boulder, trying to process what I had witnessed. My mind kept returning to the torchbearer, the amber eyes, the silent command, the weight of awareness pressing down like a physical force. It was one thing to read about the night marchers in books or hear tales told by locals. It was entirely another to feel their presence pressing against your spine, measuring your pulse, your intent, your very life. The wind shifted, faint at first, then growing stronger, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, metallic, almost like the tang of old blood and rusted weaponry. I glanced around, no torches, no figures, yet I felt it again, the subtle vibration in the valley floor, the rhythm of steps that didn't belong to anything alive, steps that continued long after their marchers had disappeared. And then I heard it, the faintest echo of chanting, like a thread of sound barely grasped by my ears. Not loud, not coherent, but undeniably present. Each syllable was drawn out, undulating across the valley, a language older than any map, older than colonization, older than any law humans had imposed on the land. I pressed myself closer to the boulder, trying to make myself small, trying to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, if I didn't move, I won't be noticed again. The idea was laughable, of course. They had already seen me. The night marchers never forget, and they never truly leave you untouched. I thought back to the local historian I had spoken to earlier that week. We had warned me in a quiet voice, leaning close as if the valley itself could overhear. They watch more than the paths. They watch the eyes of trespassers. The night marchers are not angered by intrusion. They are aware of it, and awareness, once given, is never revoked. I had nodded politely, thinking of it as a folklore, a dramatic flourish to impress a visitor like myself. Now, crouched in mist and shadow, I realized it was a literal truth. My thoughts were interrupted by movement along the cliffside, a faint shimmer, a shadow too precise to be random. I froze, my heart hammered. Then I saw it, a figure descending, not through ordinary steps, but sliding off the cliff as though gravity bent for its will. Another torch flickered into existence, suspended in the air, carried by no visible hand. I realized something terrifying. The night marchers could manifest where they chose, and they chose to remind me I was still within their reach. The chanting grew louder, yet still contained in the valley, confined to places I could not yet perceive. Each beat, each vibration seemed to sync with my own heartbeat, pulling me into a rhythm I didn't want to join. I felt like a drummer forced onto a song I did not write. I remembered something else the historian had whispered. If you encounter them, you must not flee. You must not look them in the eye, and you must not step off the path. Stand still, and they will pass. But do not think you are safe. They will know you, and they will carry your name forward in their march. I had stepped off the path. I had looked, and yet, somehow, I had survived the initial passage. But now, I realized that survival did not mean safety. The night marchers had noted me, marked me in ways I could not yet understand. And even in retreat, they left a presence behind, a lingering awareness that made every shadow in the valley seem to stretch toward me. The mist shifted again, curling around my legs, my waist, like slow fingers testing my reaction. I could feel the power in that motion, not malice, not hate, but discipline, pure, unrelenting, and impossible to bargain with. It reminded me that the night marchers were more than spirits. They were custodians of the land, enforcers of ancient law, and keepers of a memory humans had forgotten. I stayed crouched until my knees cramped and my back ached. Every moment felt stretched, elongated by fear and awe, by wonder and the primal recognition that I had glimpsed something entirely alien yet tethered to the world I thought I knew. When the first faint rays of the sun lit the valley floor, I dared to glance up. The torches were gone, the echoes of chanting were gone, the shadows receded, yet I felt them still, a pressure against my consciousness, a reminder that the night marchers had not left, only withdrawn their focus. I realized then that what I had witnessed was not a one-time occurrence, it was a cycle. They march every night, and for centuries they have measured, observed, and recorded, and I, a mere visitor, had been drawn into that rhythm, that eternal process. Even as I moved back toward the road, careful with each step, careful with each glance, I knew the valley had changed me. My perception of time, of space, of the land itself had shifted. I was now aware in ways I could not undo, and that awareness, I understood, was part of their march as much as their steps, their torches, their chants. By the time I reached the edge of the valley and saw the first signs of human settlement, the faint glow of streetlights and distant houses, I could still feel it. The weight of eyes that never sleep, the rhythm of steps that never cease, the endless march that will outlast every human who ever dared to enter their path. By the time the sun fully emerged over the distant ridges, I found myself standing at the fringe of the valley, yet the presence of the marchers clung to me like a shadow. I tried to shake it off, tried to convince myself that daylight dissolved their power, that once the torches vanished, their influence would fade, but the valley had imprinted something deeper, a rhythm in my chest, a human breath, my skin, a knowledge that the marchers were still watching, even unseen. I paused at the trailhead, my boots crunching softly against the gravel. Even every instinct screamed at me to retreat, but part of me, an unreasonably stubborn part, wanted to understand, to know why the night marchers existed, why they were bound to the land in such a relentless, perfect formation. I remembered the old Hawaiian myths the local historian had recited, almost as if he were whispering incantations. They are the Ali warriors, the spirits of chiefs and soldiers who defended these lands. Their duty is eternal and their march is never-ending. To witness them is to witness the weight of history itself. History, that word settled in my chest like a stone. It wasn't just myth or legend, it was continuity, memory made flesh or spirit manifested nightly to remind humans of something they could never fully grasp. I followed the trail cautiously, my eyes scanning every shadow, every curve of the cliffs. The valley seemed alive in the daylight too, the rocks, the trees, the subtle shifting of the mist and shaded hollows, all holding on to the memory of what had occurred hours earlier. I realized then that the night marchers were not just spirits confined to darkness. Their presence lingered, a pulse beneath the soil, a vibration through the roots of trees, a memory in the stones themselves. As I walked, I noticed faint impressions in the soil along the path, deep, deliberate, aligned in ways that no human or animal had created. Footprints, perhaps, or something else entirely, but undeniably a record of their march. Each mark seemed to hum softly beneath my fingers as I traced it, as though the earth itself remembered every step. Then came a sound, subtle at first, a low, rolling drumbeat that seemed to rise from the valley floor. I froze, every hair on my neck standing. The rhythm was unfamiliar and familiar at the same time, echoing the cadence of the march I had witnessed, yet distorted, stretched by distance and time. It wasn't just a sound, it was a message, a pulse, a heartbeat of the ancient warriors that persisted beyond sight. I moved forward, compelled despite fear, toward a clearing where the mist had once been thickest. The trees there were taller, older, their trunks gnarled and scarred. Shadows pooled at their bases, unnatural and deep, almost liquid in form. I sensed movement, faint outlines fitting just beyond the corners of my vision. Eyes, always eyes, watching. A wind blew through the valley, carrying whispers of chants and calls from centuries past. I couldn't understand the words, but their meaning was clear. They were warnings, instructions, and claims. The marchers claimed this land, not with malice, but with authority that humans could not challenge. Every step I had taken had been observed, measured, evaluated, and now, even in the light, the judgment continued. I pressed on, each step deliberate. I reminded myself of the historian's advice: stand still, do not look directly, respect their path. But how do you respect something that lingers in the air, in the soil, in the very rhythm of your heart? How do you navigate a force older than memory, older than law, older than the people who know called this valley home? Suddenly I caught movement at the periphery of my vision. A figure stepped forward from behind a massive banyan tree, not fully visible in the daylight. Its form was human-like, yet too precise, too elongated, like a shadow that had learned to walk upright. The faint glimmer of a ceremonial helmet caught the sunlight, and for a brief instant, I saw amber eyes, sharp and ancient, studying me. I froze. The rhythm of my heartbeat synced with the unseen drumbeat once more. It was as if I had stepped into their song, unwillingly, and now the marchers were reminding me that I had been counted. Then, almost imperceptibly, the figure gestured. Not a wave, not a threat, but a signal to continue along the path, to respect the rhythm, to acknowledge their presence without interference. My legs moved on instinct, my eyes fixed on the trail ahead, avoiding the amber gaze that seemed to pierce memory itself. By the time I reached a bend in the trail, the wind shifted again, carrying a faint laughter, childlike, fleeting, yet impossibly ancient. I understood in that moment that the night marchers were not just warriors. They were keepers of lineage, guardians of the stories, the sacrifices, and the lives that had shaped this land. They were the pulse of history, a rhythm that could not be silenced, a memory that could not be ignored, and I, a fleeting human visitor, had been woven into their story. The sunlight was failing to dispel the lingering tension in the valley. Even after hours of hiking, careful not to step off the path or look too directly into shadows, the presence of the night marchers remained. It was a constant, subtle weight, like the valley itself was exhaling around me, reminding me that the march had not been truly ended. I paused near a stream that cut through the undergrowth, hoping to wash the fear from my hands, but the water only reflected back more than my own image. I could see the shadows of figures moving behind me in the reflection, not in the stream itself, but in the mirrored space of my mind, as if the marcher's rhythm had seeped into my perception. Every step I took felt like a negotiation with the unseen. I remembered the warning about trespassers. They marked those who wander too close. I had wandered too close. Every instinct screamed at me to retreat, yet a part of me, the part fueled by curiosity and fear combined, kept me moving forward. Then I heard it, the metallic clink of weapons, not real weapons, but echoes of them, reverberating through the valley as if time itself carried the weight of every sword, every spear, every act of violence committed centuries ago. The sound was slow at first, distant, almost like it existed on the edges of my hearing. Then it grew louder, sharper, syncing with my heartbeat until I realized I could not tell which rhythm belonged to me and which to the marchers. A shadow shifted across the ridge above me. I froze again. It was taller than any human, perfectly aligned with the myths, the ceremonial cloaks flowing as if caught in wind that did not exist. Amber eyes glinted in the fleeting sunlight, and I understood that these were not mere spirits. They were embodiments of the land's memory, guardians of every battle, every triumph, every loss that had occurred here. I remembered the historian's advice again: do not speak, do not run, do not look directly. But how do you remain still when every fiber of your being wants to flee? How do you resist the primal urge to scream when the valley vibrates with power far beyond your comprehension? I pressed forward, careful with each step, aware that the very earth beneath my boots remembered my intrusion. The trail narrowed and the trees seemed to lean closer, as if listening, as if recording each movement. I realized then that the night marchers were not bound to the hours of darkness. They were bound to memory itself, and memory does not sleep. A sudden rustle to my left made me snap my head, and I caught a glimpse of a figure gliding silently between the trees. It was human-shaped, yet impossibly precise, every movement deliberate. The faint glint of a weapon caught the sunlight. Again, not a real weapon, but a symbolic one, a reminder of the power carried by these spirits. My heart hammered. I dared not to blink. Then the chanting began, not the distant echoes I had first heard, but closer, more deliberate, syllables rolling over one another, a language older than any modern map or law. The sound wrapped around me, pressed against my chest, an invisible tide pulling at my consciousness. I stopped, forced to listen, and understood something essential. The night marchers were not simply spirits haunting the valley. They were a living history, walking, marching, breathing the weight of generations, demanding acknowledgement from any who trespassed. Time lost meaning. Every second stretched into infinity as I followed the narrow path, every sound amplified, every shadow a question I did not want to answer. I could feel the presence behind me, around me, a rhythm I could neither escape nor fully comprehend. By the time the path curved toward a small clearing, the sunlight had dimmed, and the first hints of dusk began to fall. I dared a glance behind me, and for a fleeting second, I saw them, hundreds of figures, all marching, all silent, all watching. Then, as if sensing my gaze, they dissolved into the folds of the valley, leaving only the echo of their presence. Even in retreat, I could feel them, their judgment, their awareness, their eternal march, and I realized that witnessing them was not enough. Their memory had claimed me, and I would carry it forward, a heartbeat out of sync with the rest of the world.